the movie is this one. We changed the
great.
program.
Oh, fantastic. Much better. Yeah. So, what I want to do here is, I'm not going to bore you very much with my speaking. I'm going to show an extract from the film that I've been talking about in the text. I realize that the text doesn't really talk about the film. It talks a little bit, but believe me, the film was central to the text, because that's how it all started. And I feel that I need to apologize for the text, because it was something that I wrote literally in one day. But it was a very productive day. You can imagine I was really jumping around. I couldn't sleep for the rest of the week. Nevertheless, it's a very imperfect text. What I would like to do is invite you to come with me to this, what has been described as an absurdly quiet spot. That is a spot of normal contention, absolute noise, the racket of the war, that it was continuous. But also an emotional and affective space which was full of animosity and absolute volumes of hatred that was being built by the media, by society, by each other, by their generals, whatever it is, for each soldier and in relation to the other. So at some point there was this, what a soldier described as an absurdly quiet spot. And this is something that it's still considered to be a taboo. It is the last taboo, as it were, the First World War. And it really is quite fascinating, the fact that, despite the fact that now, the First World War is very much on vogue, everyone is talking about it, all these things, BBC has this huge... They don't talk about it. I'm so angry because I can't find anything on fraternizations, and this is exactly what I'm going to be talking about. So the whole idea of the First World War fraternizations is exactly this kind of convergence of different lines, as it were, coming onto the no man's land. So no man's land, precisely in French, is no man's land, and all that. So it's exactly this moment of coming together and constructing something slightly different. This usually happened during Christmas. It was the famous Christmas truce of 1914, and I'm saying famous for only one book, and then there are a couple of other sort of things in Italian and some things in German, but in general it is very, very underdocumented. So what I'm trying to do is look at fraternizations through these three concepts, and of course I don't have time to analyze these concepts, but I will talk a little bit about these concepts because they're all kind of central to what I'm doing, and it's the book that I just finished, which is about spatial justice and specifically about the lawscape, atmospherics, and bodies. So just a very brief thing about what the lawscape is. So the lawscape is precisely this understanding of law and space coming together. Not just coming together, but actually co-determining each other. Not just co-determining each other, but being actually epistemologically and ontologically tautologous. The idea of the lawscape comes through this engagement with space and law, and it moved on to an understanding of how each one presents itself, as it were, so it visibilizes itself ontologically in relation to the other. So we are in a space here which is all very nice and cozy, and we speak and we're quite relaxed and all that stuff, and it's all about the thirst for knowledge and the exchange of ideas, and there is no law here, is there? But the idea of it is that this is a space absolutely saturated with law, not just the microphones, the fact that obviously the university is paying for electricity, so we have 3 air conditioning that the poor English soul of mine is freezing to death. But also we have all sorts of no, don't lower them. That's fine. Yeah. No, that's fine. But also we have a way of sitting, we have a way of listening to each other. We had a way of entering, which was of course through a kind of a questioning on the gate, etc. So what I'm trying to say is that every space that appears pure space is actually always a lawscape. So I wanted to just give you this indication before I move into the extract of the film. And oh God, people will hate me now. Sorry, I'm the law now, so I'm just determining how this space is going to be. I'm so sorry. Yes, it was. However, the idea of the lawscape is something that it pretty much determines our lives, everyone's lives, and it's not just a human limited thing, but it applies to all sorts of different bodies, as I call them, which are objects and affects and emotions and information and symbols. However, the lawscape during the First World War and particularly on the trenches, was absolutely saturated with the law. So there are very specific ways in which a body could move, could speak, could do things, could sing, could whatever. So with this, I just want to move into this kind of understanding of how the film is showing, and this film is showing the lawscape and is showing the moment of somehow breaking of the lawscape. And this is by Christian Carillon, who's a French director, and who... Stop it. Ah. Oh, come on now. I want a full screen.
It is full screen.
No, like fuller screen.
Okay, so just double click on the photo.
Okay, perfect. So, if you just... so there's a moment of three different trenches. The French, the Scottish, and the German. And this is a German tenor who, just like anyone else, was a soldier. Now the Germans were given thousands of little Christmas trees to put apparently every 5 meters away from each other during the first Christmas of the war. This is a funny element of the whole thing. Is a guy who's trying to spy, and all of a sudden he's confronted by this kind of... So he's hiding.
Mon lieutenant, venez voir vite. Il se passe quelque chose de bizarre en face. J'aime pas bien ça, mon lieutenant. C'est peut-être une diversion vu la salle.
Of course it would be, because of the lawscape determines everything that happens. So what I describe in the text is about this exchange of breaths, is the air that goes from one trench, as it were, to the other, and the song that carries this air. So this is the real transgression. The French call them the culottés, the ones with the big balls could do that. Okay, and now what? find it really interesting. There are two different keys here. They don't sing on the same key. He's right central in the no man's land now, so he can be shot by two different...
Good evening, Germans, but we're not English, we're Scottish.
It's very important.
So, das war ja ganz schön, aber jetzt gehen wir wieder zurück. Das ist hier nicht die Berliner Oper.
Sie haben recht. Das hier ist besser als Berlin.
Non, c'est encore plus fort. Il au sommet sur le Nomansland.
Attends, mon cher. C'est quoi ce bordel?
C'est quoi ce bordel? So this is it. This is the moment.
Do you speak English?
Yes, a little.
Wonderful. We were talking about a ceasefire for Christmas Eve. What do you think? The outcome of this war won't be decided tonight. I don't think anyone would criticize us for laying down our rifles on Christmas Eve.
Don't worry, it is just for tonight.
Many people said these words. So, what was happening here is obvious. I mean, I think it's very obvious, and I don't particularly want to analyze it because I don't care to analyze that particularly. But I think what must have been at the time was must have felt like a complete bubble, where you were forced to do specific things. You were forced to behave in a certain way. Your body would move, even somehow. It wouldn't even be able to resist what your body was supposed to do. Of course, people were lamenting the fact that they were there for a very long time and they didn't know how long they're going to be there, etc. But you have to imagine that in some cases there was only something like 20 meters distance between the trenches, so you could see the white of the eye of the other soldier, and they always had to stoop, etc. Lots of the truces began as a kind of an understanding of burying the dead, because this was a rather prettified sort of version of no man's land, but usually no man's land was strewn with bodies rotting away, or luckily not because of the frost. The film is all based on letters that they found and kind of narrations of the story. It's slightly beautified because it has taken some liberties, but generally speaking, it's a very accurate, as it were, sort of not representation but production of precisely this moment. But the moment that was broken was not so much the lawscape. The moment that was broken, or the instance that was broken, is what I call the atmosphere. And the atmosphere is this extraordinarily pre-conscious non-understanding of the way bodies move. So the way bodies come together onto a particular space for a particular time and do things without even realizing is precisely the kind of the understanding of an atmosphere. So what I define as atmosphere is something that fixes the lawscape. So fixes this sort of interplay between law and space by directing desire, corporeal desire, in a circular way in order to reinforce the very atmosphere. So atmosphere is fully autopoietic. It creates itself fully because the bodies desire to be in that atmosphere. These soldiers were patriotic. They wanted to carry on because they wanted to finish the war, but also they wanted to reclaim their land. If they were the French or the Belgians, they wanted to be on the right side, etc., etc. They wanted to obey perhaps their superiors. So the body's desire to reinforce this very atmosphere. So the way that I have defined atmosphere is the excess of affect that keeps bodies together. So the way the bodies are being kept together affectively, that is non-consciously. So the kind of affect means material exchanges, so the breath and the songs and the visual of the Christmas tree, etc. And then the story goes that they started exchanging other objects, cigarettes and cakes and chocolates and wine, of course, and photographs and memories. And hey, I was the barber in Holborn in London. Hey, but now I'm German, of course. I'm fighting for the Germans. So, and I was your client. Do you remember? Yes, I remember. Let's have a haircut. True story, apparently. From so the exchange is excessive. You cannot contain it, and that is exactly the whole point. Because once you start sort of entering into an atmosphere, whether a positive or a negative atmosphere, you realize, and I'm not making judgment here, is what emerges when bodies are held together by, through, and against each other. And I think this against is also very important, and something that it manifests how difficult it is to get out of an atmosphere. So to break an atmosphere of military sort of fanaticism, of patriotic loyalty, and to do something which goes somewhere else, which creates a truce. But exactly, the truce is another atmosphere. It's kind of a moment of you don't know how long it's going to last. I mean, they say just for tonight, but apparently in many cases it was very difficult to return to the previous regime. It was pretty impossible. So somebody, another sort of higher superior, should come in and say, shoot them or I'll shoot you. Because they didn't want to. They have fraternized with these people. In some cases, the truce carried on not just for Christmas, but it carried on for the rest of the year. And in some cases, they just knew that they were there. I mean, we're talking about 4 years being there. You know the other. I mean, what's the point of shooting them? So they had like moments where they would go to the water well and etc. etc. So what I'm trying to think is about this breaking away from the atmosphere, and I conceptualize this as precisely the concept of spatial justice, or the movement of spatial justice. So spatial justice is not like Harvey or Soria or some other people who've used spatial justice. It's not about regional democracy. I think it's a shame to just look at it like that, or some sort of localized kind of understanding of what is right or what is wrong. But it's about desire, it's about bodies and about spaces, and about body and the way bodies move into space. So I've conceptualized spatial justice as a question mark. It's one body's desire to move into the space of another body. And how do we do that? By withdrawing from the position that the body has been forced into. That is, by withdrawing from the particular atmospherics of desire. So we are all in a particular atmospherics of desire, and to understand whether there is a possibility of spatial justice, one has to withdraw, to break through their own desire to go into the shopping mall, for example, because they feel safe, and buy another little thing because there are no gates in there and you can just flow through or something like that. It's kind of it's a desire that keeps on repeating, and precisely to move away from this desire, or what Deleuze and Guattari called freaks. The withdrawal is kind of a particular potent movement that they retain for the schizophrenic, for the Nietzschean figure of the one who brings the parapet with her when she moves out. In order to do that, or rather when you do that, you reach that moment of withdrawal of the law with the aim of a possible emergence of a space of a different second legality. The lawless legality of justice. The whole point of justice is that it's not an answer, it's not a final solution, but it's a constant repetition of difference. So there are constant moments of withdrawing from whatever that particular space is in creating possibilities. So the interesting thing, and perhaps the most disappointing thing, and perhaps the most anti-utopian thing about all this, is that when you move out, when you break out of an atmosphere through this kind of concept of spatial justice, you land again on the lawscape. Because the lawscape is a continuum, there is nothing outside the lawscape. The lawscape is a surface, as I have, I think that's the title of the paper. So the only hope of this lawscape and of this surface is precisely to be able, perhaps through this movement, through this withdrawal away from it, to somehow reorient the whole lawscape. So the lawscape remains, but the way that the bodies and the space and all that retains its possibility is reoriented towards a different, perhaps a different possibility. Thanks so much.